Hello and welcome to this Engerati, I was going to say interview. You may notice something different. I'm joined by two guests and we're going to have a little bit of fun and we're going to have a panel discussion. I'd like to welcome Dr. Langniss, who is from Fichtner, consultant there, Wolfgang who is from Siemens, the commercial division, and we are here to talk a little bit about a made-up scenario. We've got an environment which we've called E Street, and it's slightly unusual that we've done a lot of work, and the E Street community is kind of bonded. They know each other. They want to do something new, and it's a row of residential houses. But something's happened in E Street. There's a plot of land that's been stood on the side, that's been derelict for some time, and a commercial developer wants to put a commercial building into that plot of land. Now, we want to discuss about what does E Street do in terms of how it interacts with that commercial developer. And E Street has got a desire to do something new on their energy side of things. They don't quite know whether that's energy efficiency or they want to produce energy or whatever it is. So we're going to spend the next 10 minutes meandering around and giving E Street a little bit of advice, and then coming to a point where we say, right, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then go on to the next phase. So, Wolfgang, I'd like you to kick off. You're running E Street. You're the president of E Street. Where are we going to go? What's the advice?
Yeah, maybe we should look whether the power supply, for example, is strong enough here to cover the needs of the new buildings. Yeah, maybe there are investments necessary. And if I would be one of the old members of E Street, yeah, I would ask myself, do I have to pay for it, or the owner of the new commercial building, or who else? So there will be an investment, I believe.
So that's kind of the first stumbling block. Ole, what would your take be on E Street? And
I think what is very much needed is, of course, that you get some value added and that you get some willingness to pay for it. So actually you need to convince people who are living there, and obviously also the new owners, the owners of the new buildings, to do something. So there's a benefit.
So both of you are echoing the same thing. It's just like going, okay, who's going to pay for what, and what does this dynamic exactly look like, things like that. I wonder if we can then move it on. So I'm just going to act as the commercial entity just for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, right, E Street, here's my proposition. Here's what I want to do. I want to put up this commercial building, and I want to create it in such a way that it's energy efficient, but it produces its own electricity as well. And all of you have got roofs. So what I'd like to do is PV your entire roofs and hook that up to my PV array at the top of my building, and I want to own that. In return, you buy my excess energy, and we do some load balancing. I will take on the costs of that in return for you giving me planning permission or helping me with any of those barriers and giving the rubber stamp to put up that array and maybe put a windmill on the side and things like that. Is that something E Street would do?
I would ask myself whether I would sign such a contract. It's like rent a roof, yeah, for your PV. Maybe it's a business model for my residential building. On the other hand, it could also work in another way. Maybe I'm producing by myself, I'm selling, so I'm responsible for my small power plant, and I can use the benefits also for my building. Maybe it's better for me. Maybe I'm a little bit exceptional, yeah, because I'm technically interested, yeah, others are not. So maybe your model will also fly, yeah.
I think, I mean, what we have seen very recently in Germany is that people are thinking about like supplying their neighbors with excess PV power, because we have now new regulations which give some disincentive to produce too much and to feed too much into the grid. So basically you have then this power almost for free available, and obviously people, owners of PV sets, looking for other demands beyond their own houses. And so I think there is some movement there, but it's very could you say punctual movement, right? It's a kind of tough, I would assume, really to cover entire street really with such kind of model, because you find all these different owners of the assets, and it's really tough to convince all at the same time, which would be required, I understand, from the technical point of view.
And that's one of the other stumbling blocks. So a stumbling block we'd have is like, we really got to get on the same page here.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? And then my other thing is just like trying to move East Street along a little bit. I'm now the utility. I'm coming along. So hang on a minute, what's going on here? I've already got a perfectly good supply line here. You know, why are you guys doing this crazy talk? You know, you're taking my money,
Yeah.
and actually, it's still costing me to maintain this whole thing, and you're potentially not going to use it, or not going to give me as much for it as I would have done.
Yeah.
So, what are we saying to the utility?
Yeah, well, I think there are two opportunities. On one hand, the investment is already done for the transmission and distribution net. Yeah, then maybe it's a problem. Yeah, because nobody's really paying because of the self-production. That's one model. The other one would be if the investment isn't done. Yeah, and then it's the question: is there a need to use money for this distribution net, or can the buildings or this community run independently? Yeah, but that's a totally different model. I believe that the utilities, yeah, they are not very interested in this independent running community. On the other hand, it's a big question, yeah, what happens with the peaks? Yeah, if there's not enough sun, not enough wind, then maybe the kilowatt hour will be a little bit more expensive.
And is that one of the other concerns? I mean, do we think the way for East Street to go is to be an island?
No, I mean I think we would lose all the benefits of the large grid. I mean, I should not point to 100 years of history of high security in the grid, but it's very obvious that larger grids supply larger security, and we should not get away with that, right? But certainly we can keep more and more energy at the lower level and in the distribution level if we start to produce also at that level. And I think if you talk about utilities, not only about grid operators, because grid operators I think have a really tough position in this case, because they don't see any benefits. I mean, they only need to invest all the time, but as long as their regulations are as they are, they have no benefit. But for the utilities, like facing more, instead of consumers, really prosumers, somebody who also generates from time to time, they can partner up, and I think there will be a win-win situation for both of them.
And so what we're saying is, in order for this to happen, we want to be partners with the utility.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
We've got one step further on East Street, where we're going to partner with a utility.
Yeah.
But we're saying that the whole idea of imagining that the existing residential homes will all have PVs and it'll be connected on one net with that new commercial entity is a non-starter, because technically, surely, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, but for me, it's. I think the story is not very new. Having these PV cells on the roofs, they can also buy a field and put the PV cells on there. It's a question who is operating these, who is the owner, and I think that's a big question mark. And in your example, the PV cells on my roof, are owned and operated by the utility, and at the end, it's not a question of the location. The different point, I think, is a little bit the if I'm operating and I'm a partner, I'm not just a consumer, I'm a prosumer, and I'm a partner, a business partner of the utility, and that's a big change. And I agree, there will be some utilities in future, but the business behavior will be a different one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not just a buyer of energy, I'm selling, and I'm partly independent. So the model in totally will change.
Yeah.
And in order to have that model, so what we're saying is East Street needs to have that type of model, that sort of partnership-based approach, and an open dialogue. You said it earlier on about, well, who's paying for this? And we'll come on to that in a second as we meander our way through East Street. What is stopping us from having those sort of relationships with utilities right now?
Well, I mean, possibly first before answering this particular question, but it's very nice. I think it goes very much in line with your question. Is I think many people today who are already operating a PV set, and we are talking about several hundred thousands, millions even people who are now in Europe running own PV systems. So there is some entrepreneurship here, some ventureship, people who want to produce their own energy. On the other side, I'm very much convinced that a lot of these people are not aware what this means over the whole lifetime of such kind of set on the long term, right? Because on the short term it looks nice, you get it plugged in and everything is fixed, fine. But it incorporates some entrepreneurial risks as well. And I think there is a really good entrance for utilities, because they can lend their entrepreneurship and their entrepreneurial skills to private people. Because obviously the private people want to do something and they feel fine in their position of being an entrepreneur, but they might be a bit overloaded with these tasks involved in that. So I think that might be a nice partnership.
So what would that look like? The utility would be an advisor.
It would be.
So in our East Street model, they would come in and say, look, we are perfectly fine with you taking a little bit more ownership of your energy destiny, and we like this idea. And
but there's a question whether the utility is the right partner for these.
Yes.
Maybe we are talking about an aggregator. Or
sure.
let's say it in other words. Maybe East Street. They are founding a club. And I can join the club if I'm not interested to operate my building by my own. Then I hand over these to the club, and the club is acting in my sense. So like I would do it. So, and I like this balance between utilities, aggregators, consumers, prosumers. Cool. So that this is in balance. This monopoly from utilities. I think that's not very helpful. It's not helpful for my private investments. And the question is, at the end, they want to earn money with this approach, and I think that's a problem. In my club, it can be a club fee, and it's a different relationship. I like this aggregator or club approach much more.
Absolutely, or even cooperatives. You could even think about cooperatives like joint ownership on that. I think it's not. I mean, I think there are a lot of different business models possible and already on the scene, right? So what is very different from today, and then I'm coming to the question, what is hindering us today on really going is to that point is that many utilities and many grid operators are still in this monopolistic behavior of like granting energy basically to the consumer, right? Do not see that there's a customer on the other end it has changed a little bit, but still a lot in the organizations. There's a lot of inertia against these new models. And they do not understand that they are facing consumers and they are even facing prosumers.
And that inertia,
Yeah.
you can, in a way, you can kind of understand where that inertia comes from, because it's a brave new world, isn't it? You're throwing yourself open. You're saying, well, I'm a partner and a customer and a competitor. That's three relationships, and I'm losing my slightly cushy place of being the sole energy supplier. No business likes that.
I mean, but it's. I think it's not to be over optimistic, right? I mean, we don't know how the future is, and I mean, certainly there's a lot of investment involved. So I should be not too much like optimistic. But I think it's very clear that the old business models, they do not work anymore. I mean, like RWE. I mean, they are now discussing that they are closing down their lignite power plants. I mean, and this is the very core of their supply mix, right? So basically, they don't have anymore this value added chain there. There's a big element of the value added chain is just like going away. So these organizations, if they want to survive, they need to alter. They need to change.
And I think there is also another aspect with these PV cells on my roof. Yeah. Today you get a guaranteed money for the kilowatt hours. Yeah. And that's an artificial price. Yeah. So at the end, you are getting money for your investment, but the problems in the grid, they have to be covered by others. Yeah.
Right.
Because there's instability, and at the end you are producing, and everybody's producing at the same time, and maybe there's no need for energy, and we need another investment, and that's storage. Yeah, and maybe we should come up with a model where your building is storing the energy, and when the energy is really needed, then you will get the right price to sell it to the grid. So it's more your own management what brings the money here, and not just a photovoltaic cell on your roof. That's too simple.
And that's what you mean about the whole. Everything it needs to be looked at as a system.
It's one system, and what we need is communication and normal market mechanism. Yeah. So where the investment is, there should all the margin be.
So what we're really saying for E Street is, we want a partner that looks a bit like a club.
Yeah.
We aren't going to put any names on it, so it looks a little bit like a club that is working for us because it gives us the most cost-effective energy supply.
Consumer-orientated.
Consumer-orientated. It is also helping us because it manages the system. It creates and has a buffering capacity, so the club sells when it's high, buys when it's low, or whatever.
And maybe you're investing in PV cells. I'm, as your neighbor, I'm investing in storage. Together we are joining the club, and there is a benefit.
There's a benefit, and it all joins up. So that's what we're looking at. And so then, what we've done here with that club, we've kind of come to the realization, because you said it earlier, that the club can't exist without having some sort of subscription. So everybody has said, we will pay X for this benefit, which is not the way utilities are talking about pricing and tariffs and things like that. They're not saying, here's a subscription for a year, a little bit how I buy my mobile phone, maybe, it's just like it's a fixed tariff, and then there's a variable on top of it. And that's interesting where we've ended up, haven't we? In terms of a way of relating to consumers.
Yeah, I mean, I think this points to how in the future, when we have really huge shares of renewable energies, which basically usually have always zero marginal costs. So this whole idea of price per kilowatt hour doesn't work anymore in the traditional economic sense. So in E Street, we can try in a small world what we need in the far future for the entire world, because there is no price anymore for the kilowatt hour in the extreme case of 100% renewable energies, because you have all upfront investment, so you need a capacity price. Something which you would of course not like if you want to save energy, and I guess Wolfgang doesn't like this idea.
Yeah, I like the idea in general of a flexible price. Yeah.
Right.
Because the price or the cost are not in one line, so it's really flexible. And maybe we should really act with this flexible price, and maybe there is a base price. So, but I think that's a discussion we should have now, because there will be a change.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just a nice discussion. There will be a change. That's a fact. But nobody knows in which direction it really will go.
Right.
And that's just coming to the end of our time in this discussion, which I think has done the job it was set out to do, because E Street is a microcosm of, you said it when we were talking beforehand, of what a city has and faces. So, and we've described the type of model, and what was interesting for me is that we in a very rational conversation came out with there are two things that needs to happen. E Street needs to understand that there is a fixed cost for infrastructure,
Right.
which is abstracted from the cost of energy, and it needs to understand that its tariffs are constructed in this way. But it has also got something that is different to a relationship with the utility. It's got trust, because the body that's buying and selling and providing, I've got governance over.
Absolutely.
And that's some of the changes with the utility market. So, as a closing discussion, this whole idea of E Street, and there was a talk around customer engagement and things like that, and utilities need to talk to customers differently, but they're always talking about price. And what we've done with E Street, we've described a philosophy, and we've said, if you want to buy into that philosophy, here are the rules of engagement. And you said it, on E Street, one person can have PVs, the other one has solar, and the commercial building might have power to gas storage or whatever it is, and a building might have none of it. And just say, I just want to sit here, I quite like this idea. Can we do that now? Can we do that today?
I would say from the technical view, it's no problem. Yeah, that has to do with existing rules, behavior. So
what are the sort of rules that need to kind of get broken down?
Yeah, for example, having this flexible price as an end customer. Being able to sell something to the grid here, and let's say much more transparency. That what you mentioned before, that it's more clear where the real costs are. There are so many things are covered. There are taxes, fees, and so on. That's absolutely intransparent. Do you know your bill, your electricity bill? What's paid for what? Nobody knows it. It's really too complicated. And so we need a little bit more transparency and, let's say, an incentive for these investments. And if it makes sense for me to invest, I will do it. And that's the way. And I think private investments is much better than the ones from the political parties.
And I agree very much what you say, Wolfgang. What I would like to add is on the customer side. I think obviously we have very much concentrated and focused on the private households in the past, and this has failed, so to say, so far at least. And I think we still can address them, but not directly, but indirectly. So there are, for instance, large real estate owners who owns like 10,000 of apartments, mostly distributed even, right? And they are more and more concerned on the life cycle cost rather than only on their initial investment cost. And I see here some entrance into a new markets where these people will invest in smart grids just because they need the information to run well the real estate. But as a side effect, they have then also provided the infrastructure to do even more and even enter into, for instance, generating electricity. So
yeah, that makes really sense, because if you see the life cycle costs of a building, 20% are for design and build, 80% for the life cycle time. From the life cycle time, there are 60% for the operation and spare parts and this stuff, and 40% with the 2 days energy price for energy. Yeah, 40% of the life cycle costs. So 80% of the total costs, and from these 80%, 40% for energy. That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So if you want to save money here, if you want to build your own future, you should have a look to these energy costs.
absolutely, and I think here's then the key, because then there is a willingness to pay because they can save money, so they are willing also to invest, which is not the case, for instance, for the grid operator, right? I mean, so we are now constantly encountering the situation that we see a benefit, but it is not monetized.
Yeah.
And I think real estate owners are, huge real estate owners is certainly one entrance into this market.
And these would be property developers, basically.
Property developers or property owners.
Yeah.
I mean, like large insurance companies, they own like 10,000, 100,000 of apartments. And of course, I mean, we need to look also more on commercial customers, I think, which is of course not so standardized, because each commercial customer might be very different to another. So it involves more individual adaptation, right?
And all of this leads us to the fundamental disruptive effect here, isn't it? That the cost of the tech of me generating my own power is going down and down and down and down and down.
Right.
Which is the fundamental thing that is probably causing this disruption, because suddenly someone who's technically minded or wired in that way says, hang on, a little bit like all these nations taking charge of their own energy destiny, I want that too.
Right.
You know, I want to be in control,
Right.
and that's where we're going. But the opportunity, I think, is right. I think what we've described with East Street is if someone can take that on board, and I think that's where we will get some innovative customer engagement, because I can imagine a property company marketing a new build and saying, hey, guess what? Move in here. We've built it in such a way that it's energy efficient. And by the way, your 40% of costs with us is 20%.
Yeah.
And I think it's entities like that that would have a better sell.
And I think for the argumentation for companies, it's much easier, because there's this commercial aspect. Yeah, it's with a higher priority. Yeah. So I think if you would come up with a solution how they can save, not kilowatt hours, how they can save money. Yeah, that's a new aspect. Yeah, maybe they're using more kilowatt hours. Yeah, but cheaper energy. Yeah, then they will step in.
Right,
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to leave it. I'm going to one final thing. That sort of description of what we came up with in terms of some sort of business model. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, no?
I would move to the East Street.
Fine. We're all moving to East Street.
We move to East Street. Yes.
Thank you for watching. This has been an Engerati panel, and there's another one tomorrow on consumer engagement. I'm going to take some of the lessons from East Street to that panel, and thank you again for watching.